Remember, the Roman emperors were deified. Quote, hence the Pope is crowned with a triple crown as King of heaven and of earth and of the lower regions, unquote. That is an exact word-for-word description of Osiris. Quote, so that if it were possible that the angels might err in the faith or might think contrary to the faith, they could be judged and excommunicated by the Pope, unquote. Quote, the Pope is, as it were, God on earth, sole sovereign of the faithful of Christ, chief King of kings, having plenitude of power, to whom has been entrusted by the omnipotent God direction, not only of the earthly but also of the heavenly kingdom, unquote. If that's not blasphemy, according to the definition, then I don't know what is, folks.
The papal see is practicing wickedness to new heights. He suppresses the law of God and exalts his commandments above the commandments of you. Is not this to sit in the temple of God, to profess himself to be ruler of the whole church? What is the temple of God? Is it stone and wood? Did not Paul say the temple of God is holy, which temple you are? To sit, what is it but to reign, to teach and to judge? Who from the beginning of the church has dared to call himself master of the whole of Christendom, but the Pope alone? Who is Nimrod sitting in the power of Babylon? Martin Luther knew, as he wrote in First Principles, nothing else than the kingdom of Babylon and the very Antichrist. For who is the man of sin and son of perdition, but he who by his teaching and his ordinances increases the sin and perdition of souls in the church, while he yet sits in the church as if he were God? All these conditions have now for many ages been fulfilled by papal tyranny. The papacy is none other than the kingdom of Babylon and the violence of Nimrod the mighty hunter. The papacy is a general chase led by the Roman bishop to catch and destroy souls.
Jesuits really are the revived Knights Templars, these counterfeit crusades that they hold. So beware of these dangerous doctrines of demons that are coming into the church.
It's prophetic that God's using you to break things open. In Jesus' name,
Jeesuksen nimessä
we declare the spirit of religion
me julistamme, että uskonnollisuuden
that blocks the glory, the head be cut off.
että sen pää leikataan nyt poikki.
Decapitate.
He who occupies the top of those mountains can literally shape the agenda that forms nations. This crusade, this war on terrorism.
The Knights Templars. In Jerusalem, the Templars began to deviate further and further away from the practices of Christianity. They learnt the secret arts of the Kabbalah, an ancient form of Jewish magic, along with its dark rites and rituals. In 1717, the Templars made their reappearance in Europe. They had grown in both number and strength, and were now ready to coin a new identity, free from their reputation of the past, and given credibility by none other than the monarchy and aristocracy of England. And the name they chose for themselves was a name that would be known by many, but understood by a few. This new name, the Freemasons.
To order, brethren, to receive the most merciful, the Grand Master.
swing the pendulum to absolute liberalism in every sphere, and then you let it go and let it swing to the other side so that you can get exactly what you want and what prophecy predicts. Obama is the one who said the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet of Islam. Now, if you look at the web pages, there's so much conjecture as to whether the man was perhaps a clandestine Muslim. And there are pictures of his ring, which tends to be Islamic, and there are pictures of him in Islamic dress, and many, many statements to this effect. And if you look at the administration, many high officials are of the Muslim faith. So it seems as if America was being taken away from its Christian roots and swung in another direction. But prophecy said that the second beast, the United States of America, would implement legislation that would further the first beast, which is Catholicism. And therefore it must be a Christian nation bringing about Christian legislation. And here you had Obama taking the mindset in a totally opposite direction. This is a brilliant Hegelian dialectic. Whether he knew about what he was doing, whether he did it consciously, or whether he did it subconsciously is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, this is what has happened. I believe, of course, that the insider elite is pretty clued up as to what the agenda is, but nevertheless, one can leave open the option that they might have done it unknowingly. But this was the legacy. And now, with the Trump administration, we are going to probably see the pendulum swing. Catholic Herald, Obama calls for world leaders to heed Pope Francis's message. The President of the United States said he wants fellow world leaders to reflect on Pope Francis' encyclical talking about the environment. So you have this dichotomy of thought. On the one hand, you have this movement towards a totally different religious system, and on the other hand, you have this underpinning of the papal system. And under his leadership, you had the visit of Pope Francis, where he went through the entire procedure almost like a president of the world being inaugurated, speaking from the balcony, which is a step higher than any of the presidents have done. So you have this dichotomy of thought. You have, on the one hand, the appearance that it's moving in this direction, and on the other hand, the realities of the laws that it's moving in another direction. And then you had the two opponents. You had the one standing for the principles of the right, the other one standing for the principles on the left, and it was a vicious campaign. Now, is this a dialectic, a Hegelian dialectic? Is this a game of good cop, bad cop, or two ideologies which are to undergo pendulum swing? Well, let's have a look at some of the facts without judging any of the individuals and see whether we can come up with some form of conclusion. Here we have the famous supper, the so-called charity supper that takes place just before the election, where you have the Archbishop of New York, who always is the head of the Knights of Malta, in America, where he has this meal with the candidates that are to be elected for president. And you can see the jovial nature. This is church and state at its best. And the two of them smiling next to Cardinal Dolan. Now it's interesting when you look at the actions of these individuals, you also get this idea of this dialectic. I mean, if you take the Cardinal, for example, the papacy will make one statement, a very conservative statement, let's say with regard to whatever, lifestyle choices or contraception. the papacy will make one statement, and the people who are supposed to live it out will do exactly the opposite. So you're confused. You're thinking, why are the Jesuits and the Knights of Malta doing the exact opposite of what the papacy has just proclaimed? Why do you have this dichotomy of thought? Well, you see, in this thinking, there's this yin-yang aspect. The white aspect and the black aspect, well, they augment each other. The one cannot exist without the other, so they say, in this yin-yang philosophy. So even within the ranks of the church, you have this dichotomy of thought. Now, the two candidates, as we will see, fit the bill in every single aspect. If you go to the web pages and you look at the bloodlines of the American presidents, then it is a known fact that all the presidents that have, well, reigned in the United States have all been related. So let's have a look at what the media has to say. If all presidents are related, which of the 2017 candidates will be the next president? As it turns out, both Trump and Hillary Clinton are related to John of Gaunt, a 14th century royal. Gaunt was the first Duke of Lancaster, who was the son of King Edward III. According to MyHeritage, Trump is related through his mother, Mary Ann McLeod, back to his 17th grandfather, John Beaufort, while Clinton is related through her father and the Rodham family back to the 17th great-grandmother, Joan Beaufort. The two candidates are 19th cousins, and so they both have the right bloodlines to continue this lineage. Now, that's another story as to why they should all be related. And it's fascinating that the Bible doesn't speak about the presidents of the world, it speaks about the kings of the world. And it really, over the course of history, hasn't mattered which of the candidates has won, because the candidates have always both been in the same bloodlines. Here are the American presidential bloodlines. Here's another page that explains this. Did you know all 44 US presidents have carried European royal bloodlines into office? 34 have been genetic descendants of just one person, Charlemagne, the brutal 8th century king of the Franks. Now, that's a fascinating story, because Charlemagne is, of course, the one who was crowned emperor of the Roman Empire, the new Roman Empire, and the Pope was crowning him whilst his kingdom was falling apart. So he's a symbol of this unity of the world under one leadership, the papacy. And then if we go to Edward III of England, in fact, the presidential candidates with the most royal genes has won every single American election. Now, it seems as if Trump and Hillary had exactly the same lineage, so it didn't really matter which one of the two won. This information comes from Burke's Peerage, which is the Bible of aristocratic genealogy based in London. Every presidential election in America since and including George Washington in 1789 to Bill Clinton has been won by the candidate with the most British and French royal genes. Of the 42 presidents to Clinton, 33 have been related to two people, Alfred the Great, King of England, and Charlemagne, the most famous monarch of France. So it goes on. 19 of them are related to England's Edward III and has 2,000 blood connections to Prince Charles. The same goes with the banking families in America. George Bush and Barbara Bush are from the same bloodline, the Pierce bloodline, which changed its name from Percy when it crossed the Atlantic. Percy is one of the aristocratic families of Britain to this day. They were involved in the gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament at the time of Guy Fawkes. Now that's even more fascinating, because that was a Jesuit plot to overthrow the Protestant government in the United States. So if all these bloodlines belong to these individuals, that overthrew Protestantism, well, that would be an interesting plot for the puppet masters to work on behind the scenes. But we're just looking at the facts, so let's continue. The Mail online predicted or showed that The Simpsons predicted a Donald Trump presidency, and it didn't end well. Time travel episode from 2000 featured broke nation relied on aid from China. Now, as we have seen in some of the previous series that we have made, The Simpsons the writers of The Simpsons are all probably insider individuals with more knowledge about what is going to happen in the world than most would deem possible. And as some candidates have said in the past, if something works out the way that it has worked out, it works out that way because it was planned that way. So there is that element, but there is also, of course, an element of luck maybe involved as well. Now, The Simpsons generally use many esoteric symbols in their productions, and they have been extremely accurate on a number of issues and have predicted many things that seemed unlikely or impossible years in advance. 9/11 being a case in point, the destructive events in the United States, and in their particular little issues, 16 years before this presidential election, they showed their character in the same dress as Hillary Clinton would be wearing, including the necklace, including the earrings, and that's rather fascinating. It's interesting that she actually wins the next election, but according to their scenario, Donald Trump would win the current election. So that's rather fascinating, and some of the statements and the ideologies that were contrasted there are, well, very strange to say the least. This comes from the year 2000, and they show Trump in his red tie and his jacket between the flags, and this happened in reality. So they're pretty accurate. But it gets even more bizarre because they show that Trump, that's in 2000, greeting the people in Trump Towers, going down the escalator, raising his hand, and again he has the red tie and the suit on. And reality, 2015, Trump greeting the crowds, going down the escalator of Trump Towers. I mean, it's pretty accurate. It's pretty sharp. Now, whether this is pure coincidence or whether it is not is actually irrelevant. Some of the more bizarre ones, rather interesting, are the maps that we will see in a moment. And you can see their character here saying, oh no, it's actually come true. And this is the map that has been going around where they show what the distribution of the votes would be, but this is actually not quite accurate because this one was actually one that they used in the Romney campaign, so it doesn't apply to that previous one. But nevertheless, it's interesting that they show these red demographics, and of course this picture has changed in the present one, so you can not really use this one. Now let's have a look at some other facts, because what we are interested in is prophecy and not the games and the dialectics that are being played in this world. The National Catholic Reporter tells us that Mike Pence, who is going to be the Vice President of the United States, which is a very, very powerful figure, is a born-again evangelical Catholic. And the web pages in the world tell us this very thing. Now, that's somewhat of a misnomer, and a few years ago, that would not have been a possibility. To be a born-again evangelical Catholic would be considered an oxymoron. It would be impossible. In my youth, that would have been impossible. But the religious landscape has changed, And there's been such a merging of Catholicism and Protestantism that this contradiction in terms is today a common reality. So a born-again evangelical Catholic. They say that he was a rather dedicated Catholic. Mike Pence, he was an altar boy and very dedicated. And what about Donald Trump? Well, Donald Trump attended an Ivy League school, so let's ask the Washington Post something about his background. When he was young, he went to the private Kew Forest School in Forest Hills, Queens, where his father, Frederick, a very wealthy real estate developer, was on the governing board. Behavior problems led Donald's exit from the school, at which point he was sent to New York Military Academy at the age of 13 by his parents, and who hoped the discipline of the school would channel his energy in a positive manner. He did well there and went to Fordham University, a Jesuit school in the Bronx. So Donald Trump tries to downplay his Fordham experience and rather to upplay his later experiences. And then he went to the University of Pennsylvania and studied economics for 2 years. So he did attend a Jesuit school, which is interesting and just one of the facts. Now let's go back to Mike Pence again. Postmodern evangelical Catholic conservative. But Pence is also very much a creation of the last half century of American political religious life. Born and raised Catholic, he became a Catholic youth minister and reportedly wanted to be a priest. But according to interviews, Pence has given over the years, interestingly, has more recently declined to talk specifically about his spiritual evolution. While in college from 1978 to 81, he began blending his Catholicism with evangelical Protestantism. I made a commitment to Christ, Pence said. I'm a born-again evangelical Catholic. So here we have a Catholic vice president who is in a position to reach out to evangelicals. Now it's fascinating that the other side, of course, had chosen Tim Kaine as their vice president. And the two met in debate, and apparently Mike Pence was the stronger candidate in that debate, or so they say. But nevertheless, would have made any difference, because both of these are Catholic gentlemen. And let's have a look what the Harvard Divinity School tells us about Tim Kaine and Mike Pence and faith. It says that Kaine was educated at a Jesuit high school and has been influenced throughout his life by Jesuits. Often seen as progressive and open-minded in the US, he's also been called a Pope Francis Catholic. What does it mean to be a liberal Catholic reformer? Now, this is rather fascinating. So you have these high-profile Catholics as vice presidents, the one wanting to be a priest and was an altar boy, and the other one, all his training in Jesuit environments. Now, it's interesting that the Jesuits themselves say, or Ignatius Loyola said, that if you have to choose sides, then a Jesuit can choose one side and represent it to the point of death, while a fellow Jesuit may choose the opposite side and defend that to the point of death. That is the Hegelian dialectic, and it's fascinating how it works. So it really wouldn't have mattered which one of these two would have become the vice president, and it really wouldn't have mattered which one of these two would have become president. Now, before I even talked about this, I thought that Hillary Clinton would probably fit the modern profile somewhat better, but I also said it doesn't matter which one of them wins. But now on reflection, it becomes rather interesting that it went the way it went. Now, in the discussion here with these people from Harvard, Donald Trump's running mate, Governor Mike Pence, described himself as a born-again evangelical Catholic. Is this an unusual faith mix? And what does this combination say about his public service? And the answer? I'm not quite sure what Governor Pence intends to affirm by a born-again evangelical Catholic. He comes from an Irish Catholic background, was raised as such during college, Indiana Hanover College. He had an evangelical religious experience under the influence of a non-denominational group. However, in the following years, he still considered himself a Catholic, went to Mass, worked as a youth minister at a Catholic church, and even thought of becoming a priest. However, in the mid-1990s, he joined the Grace Evangelical Church, which is affiliated with the Evangelical Free Church in America. One could describe it as a Baptist denomination. It was, however, the church to which he started to take his family in Indianapolis. At that time, he described himself as a Christian, conservative, Republican, in that order. In this description, the word Catholic was not present. So, when we look at these two, they are both capable of fulfilling the prophetic agenda. Pope Francis calls for unity between evangelicals, Catholics, and he said that division is the work of the devil. So they had to be brought together. So Pence is actually the perfect one, because he is both Catholic and evangelical and can bring them together. Pope Francis has called for unity amongst evangelicals, Catholics, and Christians from other denominations, emphasizing that we are one in Christ and warning that division between the groups is the work of the devil. The division is the work of the father of lies, the father of discord, who does everything possible to keep us divided, Francis said in a video message to a gathering sponsored by the John 17 movement. Now, the John 17 movement was a movement to gather all the evangelicals under one umbrella, under the papacy, or together with the papacy. Charisma News gives a very interesting insight. It tells us that Kenneth Copeland laid hands on Donald Trump and prayed over him. This is fascinating. Well, Charisma News is a very prominent journal. Earlier this month, we reported how Paula White set up an invitation-only meeting between the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and evangelical pastors. That meeting happened this week, and plenty of Pentecostals were there to lay hands on the billionaire, make declarations of his life, and pray. Beyond Paula White, also present were Kenneth and Gloria Copeland, and then another whole host of very prominent evangelical leaders. Where is this heading towards? Are we heading towards a union of church and state? Now, what is Donald Trump? Well, let's have a look. Religious News Services says, is Donald Trump now a born-again Christian? And when I read what the journal Christianity Today had to say about Donald Trump, about his remarks and his anti-woman statements and his wild statements, then they were, well, less than pleased, it seems. And now, afterwards, they're all scattering and trying to come together on these issues. Donald Trump has described himself as a Presbyterian and Protestant, a Sunday church person, which is very fascinating, and a collector of Bibles. Now, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee reportedly can add born-again Christian to that list too, according to one of the members of Trump's new Evangelical Advisory Board. So here you have a Sunday-keeping Protestant. Now, if you're going to reach out to the religious community and bring them together, wouldn't it be interesting if the Protestant reaches out to the Catholics and the Catholics reaches out to the Protestants? Then you would have a perfect mix. But I found this rather interesting and an interesting mix, because by some of his statements, it is hard to imagine that all of this is, perfect truth. Now, this was the statement that Donald Trump made to the Catholic world.
Catholics are an important part of the American story. America has been strengthened by hardworking Catholics. From New York to California, the Catholic story is truly unique, and it's a great story. From marching for civil rights to educating millions of children, serving the poor, and helping define the pro-life movement, clergy and lay Catholics across the country have made countless contributions to the American success and the American success story. Washington politicians have been hostile to the church. They have been hostile to Catholics. They have been hostile to the members of Catholicism. My administration will stand side by side with the American Catholics to promote the values we all share as Christians and Americans. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. We will make America great again.
So there you have Donald Trump reaching out to the Catholic community. A Protestant, born again Protestant. On the other hand, you have Mike Pence, who said, I'm a Christian, conservative, and Republican in that order, and left out the little fact that he was thoroughly Catholic. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Greetings, I'm Governor Mike Pence. It's my honor this year to serve as the Republican nominee for Vice President of the United States with my running mate, Donald Trump. I'm grateful to be able to join you, if only by videotape, but I'm not sure how they introduce me. The introduction I prefer is pretty short. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. And really, it's as a fellow believer that I'm particularly honored to be able to address you today. I know every one of us has our own story about how we came to faith. For me, I was raised in a family where faith was important. Church on Sunday, grace before dinner. But my faith became my own when I made a personal decision to trust Jesus Christ during the spring of my freshman year in college. That night, my heart was literally broken wide, with gratitude and with joy, when I came to realize that what happened on the cross, in some small measure, actually happened for me. And that same passion and that same sense of gratitude for what was done on our behalf. Years later, my faith has been tested, relied on more times than I could possibly count. All I know for sure today is I need him more than ever. And he's really the center of my life and the center of my family's life. God's love really eclipses our failings, and as always, he's been a source of renewal and strengthening for this nation and for people of faith throughout our history. In these troubled times, I believe we stand at a turning point, when those who cherish faith, those who cherish freedom, those who cherish the sanctity of life and all the liberties enshrined in our Constitution should step forward and heed the call to action. I joined Donald Trump on the Republican ticket because I believe he has the right leadership and the right vision to make America great again. President Donald Trump will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who will uphold our Constitution and the rights of the unborn. Donald Trump will also sign into law legislation that will free up the voices of faith all across this country by repealing what's come to be known as the Johnson Amendment. The Johnson Amendment's literally been on the books since the 1950s, and it essentially threatens tax-exempt organizations and churches with losing their tax status if they speak out on important issues facing the nation from the pulpit. Donald Trump and I are both committed to work with renewed Republican majorities in the House and the Senate to repeal the Johnson Amendment once and for all. The truth is that a careful study of American history has shown that the strength of our nation has come from our communities of faith. Throughout our history, it's been the voices of faith that more often than not have driven our nation to a more perfect union. It was the pulpits around the American founding that thundered against the tyranny of King George. It was the pulpits around America that spoke of the evils of slavery and brought an end to the scourge of slavery in America, even through a great civil conflict. And it was voices of faith and communities of faith that transformed our nation through the civil rights movement in our own lifetime, and we're a better nation for it. The choice today for all of us, though, could not be more clear. I've never seen a more dramatic choice in a national election in my lifetime. I truly do believe we're come to a time for choosing. And I think it's a time in the life of our nation when people who cherish life, when people who cherish our liberties, when people who cherish the great traditions that are enshrined in our Constitution should come together and support Donald Trump and our agenda to make America great again. In these troubled times at home and abroad, challenging times for American families, I'd like to encourage you to do one more thing, and that is to bow the head and bend the knee in the days that remain in this election. Pray for our country. But as you do so, please pray as Lincoln said was his prayer. Not so much that God would be on our side, but that we would be, in his words, on God's side. Because I truly do believe in my heart of hearts that what's been true for millennia is still true today. That if his people, who are called by his name, will humble themselves and pray, he'll again do as he's always done throughout the storied history of this nation. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal our land. This one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today. May God bless you, your families, this community of faith, your church, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.
And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come.
See that even here it's saying to receive the scroll and to break open its seals. Oh my goodness, I didn't even realise this was here. I used this picture in a video the other day. That is Apollyon the Destroyer.
This is the world you are graduating into. This is what I want to talk about today with you for a few minutes. To lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
Footage has emerged of the former Vice President Creepy F. Biden, with young children, and with the Attorney General Jeff Sessions. We just want to play these clips and want to warn you that what you're about to see is very disturbing. Now, obviously, the behavior that you're seeing here fits the profile of a pedophile. Obviously, nobody out there would take liberties with other people's children like Creepy Joe Biden does. And there's just tons of footage of him out there touching children inappropriately, caressing them, massaging them, basically grooming them, and making them feel basically awkward in their own skin. And this is part of the pedophile process. This is part of the virus that we're dealing with in terms of these spirit cookers. Now, check out this footage. This is the Attorney General Jeff Sessions when he was senator being sworn in by then Vice President Biden. Now, all the people are running away with their children, but Biden sees a victim. So he swoops in, he tries to touch her, and boom, he's like, get out of here. Get out of here. Don't touch this kid. He knows. Jeff Sessions knows what Biden is. And the reason that he knows is because he's had many years to work with him. So obviously this man has a reputation. They know what they're dealing with as fellow senators and colleagues. But this is just some of the very strange, bizarre, and damning footage that we see out there regarding this creepy Biden. Now look how he kind of like, he's like, come here, kid, come here. And he grabs her, yanks her, and then he starts touching her. I mean, this is very inappropriate and disturbing behavior. But it's very classic. It's what it's expected when it comes to these kind of people. Look at him, whispering sweet nothings. And this is kind of like his MO. He's basically grooming the children, trying to make them feel comfortable, making them feel special, that kind of thing. I mean, this is what predators do. We're seeing it again here, and it's very inappropriate. He grabs him by the arm, he yanks him real close, and he's like, come here, kid. I mean, this stuff, he even tries to kiss her. This is messed up, and he's smiling. Look at this now, more petting.
Hi there, my name is Alan Lamont. I am bringing a video about Joe Biden, who recently, as we know, in the news, called for a new world order. US Vice President Joe Biden did not hesitate to call for a new world order while participating in the Export-Import Bank Conference in Washington, D.C., where Joe Biden made this quote: "The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order." Now, when Joe Biden makes this statement, let me make it clear to you, they have already established this new world order. So when he speaks of actually creating the new world order, it's already been created. What it really means is that now is the time to fully implement that. They've waited. And what have they waited for? I'll reveal this. But first of all, I need to explain something about who Joe Biden really is. First, I want to say this. He is actually the real president of the United States. That's the truth. That's who he is. Let me explain that. Joseph R. Biden. Okay. Joseph Biden is a papal knight of Malta, which is a Vatican knighthood, the Knights of St John of Jerusalem. He is also a high Jesuit, and he is the controller of Barack Obama. Joe Biden has risen from congressman and, served Carter, the President of the United States, and also he was serving Pope John Paul II. And he is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. But more than that, Joe Biden has Jesuit alumni honorary degrees from the University of Scranton, PA. Also, he has Jesuit degrees from St Joseph's University, Philadelphia, PA. Joe Biden has been trained by the Jesuit Order. And it's the Jesuits who control the American government. Now, after what happened with Clinton, it was too obvious. It was too obvious because, and I explain that, Bill Clinton graduated from Jesuit Georgetown University. And he was a high Jesuit. And he was positioned to become president by Jesuit Georgetown University. And of course, after that, we had, Bush Jr., and he was a complete disaster. I mean, he wasn't a failure. He'd done everything that the Jesuits ordered him to do. He was under the chain of command of the Jesuits of Rome. But after that whole 9/11 CIA operation in the war in Iraq, they realized that they really just could not continue you know, to position these people who had these Jesuit connections, you know. But the thing is, if you dig into Barack Obama, you find really that Barack Obama was really controlled by Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a member of the Knight of Malta, and he's also a member of the Bilderberg Group, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and one of the founding members of the Trilateral Commission. And of course, he has Jesuit alumni degrees from Jesuit Georgetown University. The vast majority of them do. He is a Polish Roman Catholic, but he's also a Jew, okay? A socialist communist, a Jesuit professor from Columbia University, also in New York. And he was the man that recruited, you know, Barack Obama. He was the one that really brought him into the Council on Foreign Relations and really, you know, opened the doors for him to be positioned as President of the United States. You have other Jews in the highest positions, and of course people say the Jews control the New World Order because you have another man called George Soros, you know, George Soros, and he was the member of the Council on Foreign Relations, member of the, you know, Carlyle Group, which is an interlocking financial group really, amongst the Vatican Knights. Also he was, you know, another major stockholder in Halliburton, you know, another organisation, you know, really primarily for war. He was a Hungarian Jew, another socialist communist, but he was the actual financial backer of Barack Hussein Obama. And also he was connected to Rupert Murdoch, who was a Vatican Knight of St Gregory. But really what you have here is you have high Masonic Jews in the highest positions of the American CFR, okay? And all of these corporations, running these corporations. It's exactly the same with the media. I really sympathise with people who say that the Jews rule and the Zionists control the New World Order. I mean, 90% of them are spreading disinformation, okay? Knowingly, they're conscious conspirators. But there's that 10% who really believe that actually the Jews rule the New World Order. Well, what we're talking about here is we're talking about high Masonic Jews that are positioned, you know, really the court Jews, okay, for the Pope of Rome. They're under the power of the papacy, but they're put out in front as diversion so that people never see the true controllers and the true shadow Jesuit government. So what I'm giving you some history to what's actually taking place. The positioning of Barack Obama was really just to take attention away from the Jesuit order. But what they've done is they've put, you know, their vice president, high Jesuit, and he is a high Jesuit. He really is. He is the real president of the United States, Joseph Biden. Why is he coming out now and saying things like, we need a New World Order. We need to create, in reality, this New World Order. What does that mean in reality? It means it's time to implement it. So why have they been waiting? Everyone's eyes have been on Barack Obama. And what did they do? They brought out their... Now listen, I am not against Jews. I have friends who are Jews and also Messianic Jews. Do you understand? I have a lot of friends that are Jewish actually. I used to work with a lot of Jewish people in, you know, different churches. So I'm not anti-Semitic. Just hear what I'm saying. You had, you know, papal advisor, Knight of Malta, Henry Kissinger, you know, who is for a long time worked in this round table of the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group, Club of Rome, this whole, you know, Holy Roman Empire, you know, round table. Kissinger really has moved in and out of these different organizations, and he made a statement a few years ago saying, you know, it's through Barack Obama that we're going to bring the New World Order. Why did he make that statement, and why was it from a Jew? Okay, because the Jesuits of Rome are, you know, diverting people away from the true power, who is actually Joe Biden. You know? That's the truth. Barack Hussein Obama is nothing more than a 33rd degree Prince Hall Freemason. Now I'm not saying that's all he is, but I'm saying, you know, that's the only power he has. Of course he also does have Jesuit alumni degrees, and that's from Notre Dame, Jesuit University. So of course he has power, of course he has position, and he's positioned into the, you know, Catholic American Holy Roman Empire. He's positioned as president, but all he is a high mason. All he is a Jesuit alumni. The true president, the true controller of him is, as I've said, Joe Biden. And he has been working for the papacy really for decades. I mean, even since the time of John Paul II, okay? He's been controlling American politics covertly, secretly, of course, you know. And so this is why Joe Biden has come out with this statement to the press in Washington, D.C., that now is time to create in reality a New World Order. So why have they been waiting? They've been waiting for a high Jesuit provincial pope to be positioned. And it's no coincidence whatsoever, guys, that the Black Pope, Adolfo Nicholas Pachin, the superior Jesuit general, has now positioned his high Jesuit Pope Francis, who controlled secretly, covertly, he controlled the Argentinian government, because believe me, the Jesuit provincials have the power. That's the truth. Even in the Vatican. Even in the papacy. Let me explain how it works in the Vatican, and let me explain how it works, for instance, in the American government. Okay, let me deal with the Vatican first. In the Vatican, this is the power structure. You have the Black Pope, you have the General, the Father General of the Society of Jesus. He is the true Pope. He is the true controller of Vatican corporation, because it is a corporation. It's not a church. Okay? It's a worldwide corporation. The Black Pope controls the papacy. He has a Jesuit council. Many of them consisting of papal bloodlines, but really high Jesuit provincials. It's called the Curia, and it is in the Church of the Jesuit. The Curia is really the, you know, magisterium. It's the government of the Black Papacy. Okay. So you have the Black Pope, the high Jesuit provincials, and then you have the bishops. And the bishops really, you know, they control their regions. They control, obviously, what's called by Catholics archdioceses. They control the regions across the earth, you know. But it's not the bishops that have control. Behind the bishops, they answer to their controllers, who are the high Jesuit provincials. And now, I'll apply it to politics. Okay. So you have the Black Pope, the high Jesuit provincials, the bishops. But here, the Jesuit provincials, they govern all across the earth what's called Jesuit assistances. They are positioned from Jesuit universities, and it's the Jesuit high provincials that control their, I will say this, Jesuit appointed prime ministers. The Jesuits have never been overt. They've never been overt this way. We have the Vice President of the United States, who has Jesuit alumni degrees from a Jesuit university. We have the President of France, Francis Hollande, who graduated from the HEC, a Jesuit university. We have the President of the European Union, Van Rompuy, and he graduated from a Jesuit university. But now we have a high Jesuit provincial pope. And I want to tell you now that Pope Francis, he's not just some, you know, Jesuits that is under the power of the Black Pope, and, you know, he's just some Jesuit provincial, because there's many of them. Every nation, and I'll say this, every nation is governed by a high Jesuit provincial, and they covertly, secretly control the presidents. They control the Catholic monarchs. But believe me, Pope Francis was on the high Jesuit Curia. He joined the Jesuit Order in 1953, and he worked under Pedro Arrupi, and then he worked alongside Hans Kovenbach. This man is, you know, literally, you know, under the general. What I mean is, you know, that's the power this man has. Okay? He was a high provincial. And this is why Joe Biden has come forth at this time to reveal that they're actually going to, in reality, implement and bring this New World Order. They're going to bring it now. This is it. The time is now. They're bringing the New World Order right now. It's going to happen. But they've waited for this moment. This is their appointed time. So I want to bring that revelation, that really behind Joe Biden, it's the Black Pope who's making the statement. It's not Joe Biden. It's the Jesuit General. He's making it clearly known that he has positioned his Jesuit High Pope, okay, overtly now in the open. And here you have, you know, the Vice President of the United States, who is the real president, not Obama, saying that he's going to bring his New World Order. They're going to implement and bring the New World Order all across the face of the earth. So this is it now. The New World Order is here. It's going to be implemented. And it's time to wake up. The real power today is the Black Pope. He controls all of the bishops, all of the cardinals in the Catholic Church. He controls all of the Catholic sovereigns. He controls all world leaders, all presidents, all heads of state. They don't just come to the Vatican as ambassadors because, you know, the Vatican's a separate sovereign city-state. No, they go to the Vatican because the Pope of Rome controls world politics. But it's not the Pope. He's a figurehead. He has no power. The Jesuits of Rome, they control the papacy, and that's why all the presidents and all the prime ministers, that's why they all go. That's why we saw Pope Francis in the Vatican recently, and I've got pictures of that on this video. And here you can see, you know, Joe Biden, you know, answering to his master, showing his subordination to his high Jesuit provincial. What we have today, conclusion, is a one world government ruled over by the Black Pope, and now's the time when they are going to bring their New World Order, people. And we must resist this and expose this on the internet. My name is Alan Lamont. Thank you for listening, and as always, all roads lead to Rome.